Back in the 1970s, I was a journalist, and my interest at that time was entirely in current affairs. I had no interest in the past at all. It had an extraordinary effect on me. I began to look into the details of it, the statistics, the precision of the structure. And again, I looked at what the academics were saying, and it sounded like utter rubbish to me. So I felt there's a place for further investigation here, and I've continued that relationship with the past. I think that's where we need to disentangle the truth most urgently, because if we've got our past wrong, then that's part of why we've got our present wrong as well. What happened is that really in 1995, I was treated by the scientific community as this total outsider. How dare he speak about this? He knows nothing about this. We are the experts, and he's wrong. And what's happened since 1995 is that the evidence, drip by drip, has kept on coming in that actually validates what I was saying before. That there are missing episodes in the human story. This is how paradigms shift. They shift when the mass of evidence that contradicts the existing paradigm becomes so huge that only a lunatic could cling on to the existing paradigms. Paradigms don't give up their grip on the human imagination easily, but they will ultimately be overwhelmed by evidence. And I think that's what we're seeing in my field. I think we're seeing a recognition that the human story is much more complicated and much more mysterious than we've been taught. That there are vast areas of the behavior and activities of our ancestors that we actually know nothing about whatsoever. And the more we look and the deeper we dig, the more the evidence comes out of vast antiquity for the human story, and an incredible wisdom and knowledge. The presence of sophisticated astronomies and sophisticated geometries way back in remote prehistory should in itself be enough to lead historians to rethink the paradigm. But it takes more than that, and that information is just now coming to the boil. And I would predict, not 200 years, but within the next 20 years, we are going to see a very radical, accepted shift in the way that prehistory is looked at.
There's lots of books of alternative history that say radical things, but most of them don't appear above the radar. And as a result, there was a concerted effort was made to discredit me, and that is a bit of a conspiracy. You know, when you have academics who write to the BBC and they say, "You must bring this man down." You know, when they actually say that, and the BBC makes a program which is designed to damage my reputation, and that program is then later found to have been unfair by the Broadcasting Standards Commission, something odd is going on here. Something a little bit to do with reality control is happening there. That's why they took our talks offline. Not because they were unscientific, but because they challenged a dogma of a particular faction of science. I didn't realize that actually the past is an ideological subject in our society, and that it is a subject that is therefore tightly controlled as to what we are to know and not know about the past. You see, when you have a huge civilization, as we have to do today, with billions of people all around the world, and you're in a leadership role, you want them kind of organized and productive and doing stuff, and that you want them to feel good about that. So you want to tell them a story about why that should be good, why they should go to work every day, and basically maybe not enjoying themselves, but they go to work, earn their salary, and buy consumer goods. This is what our society is about. It's about production and consumption, and we're supposed to feel good about that. And the historical model that we have at the moment tells us that we, 21st century technological society, is the absolute apex and pinnacle of human achievement. We are it. We're the bee's knees, you know. We've made it. We're the end of that long story, and here we are, and we should just produce and consume endlessly in this sort of hedonistic binge, and that's what life is all about. And that is very nice for those in positions of power, because if people will buy into that, they stay quiet, they don't ask questions, they don't complain, they don't riot in the streets, They just do their jobs. And I would suggest that the historical model that we have at the moment is part of that system of control. It's part of saying that it's perfectly normal and right that things should be as they are. We should be very pleased with ourselves. We're not doing anything wrong, and let's just carry on doing what we do. I'm not talking about a conspiracy, actually. This isn't a conspiracy. It's just the way the world works. But the way the world changes is that people come along and suggest things which may be very uncomfortable for those who are in power. And when you're in power, you don't like to feel uncomfortable, so you do whatever you can to put that down. The mainstream, for some reason in this ideology, doesn't like cataclysms. It doesn't like cataclysmic events. It doesn't want to think that that cataclysms have played a role in the human story. So seeking for a way to explain the disappearance of the megafauna, the natural option for mainstream archaeologists is to say, oh, that was human predation that did it. That was human hunting that did it. There's a tendency in the study of prehistory to want to keep the past kind of nice and calm and just the way it is now. There's even a word for it. It's called uniformitarianism. And it's a doctrine that things should have unfolded in the past much in the way that we see them unfolding now. So if we don't have any giant cataclysms happening in the earth now, then there wouldn't have been any cataclysms in the past. And yeah, we know about the dinosaurs and they were made extinct by an asteroid, but that was 65 million years ago. Surely within the human story there's been no such thing. And as a result, scholars who attempt to investigate the possibility of a past cataclysm often find themselves in the crosshairs of very vicious attacks from their colleagues, as though somehow they're upsetting the apple cart in some way, and as though we shouldn't think about these things. I don't think that it's deliberate, planned censorship. I think it's the mindset of the individuals who we have entrusted with interpreting our history for us. And that is a mindset that is troubled by cataclysms. It doesn't want them to have happened, whether consciously or subconsciously, and looks for other reasons to explain why things are the way they are. I'd been arguing for a long time that the Sphinx is much older than it's supposed to be, that we're looking at a 12,000-year-old monument, not a 4,500-year-old monument. And the response of the skeptical community to that was, but if there was a civilization capable of creating something like the Sphinx 12,000 years ago, then they must have created other monuments. And we don't see any big monuments from 12,000 years ago. And therefore, the Sphinx must be the age we say it is. And then what happens? Klaus Schmidt and the German Archaeological Institute discover Göbekli Tepe, and lo and behold, it's 11,600 to 12,000 years old, exactly in the window of the Sphinx. Firmly dated, no dispute about it, a giant megalithic site. And suddenly the notion that the Sphinx is much older ceases to be in left field and starts to become much more central, because we're seeing it's part of a pattern. And that's what's been going on across the whole area that I work in. At a very early stage in my life, I got very clear evidence that we are not our bodies. Yeah? The body is part of us. It's the vehicle that we manipulate and move around this physical universe in, but we are not our bodies, and we cannot be reduced to our bodies. Consciousness is a giant mystery, and I believe it manifests in physical form. For certain specific reasons. There are lessons we can learn here in this level of vibration in physical form, where there are direct physical consequences for what you do. Important lessons to learn, but I don't think that's the whole story at all. I think it's just part of a much bigger, much longer journey.
To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button above this video.